A Mochi moment from Sadie, who writes, I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what I said during my first appointment with my physician at Mochi, because I didn't have to convince him I needed a GLP-1. He understood, and I felt supported, not judged. I came for the weight loss and stayed for the empathy. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Sadie is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the Edge of Liberty podcast.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Edge of Liberty. We're here in the SHR Media Network. Hold on. Oh, that's better. Appreciate you guys all being here. It is April 22nd, 2026. All right. Let's have it. I have the new light. I have the new setup. Everybody tell me how horrible it is. Please. I don't dislike it. It's just when you're so used to doing something for a long time, you kick that down. That's better. When you're so used to doing something for such a long time and things aren't where they usually are, and you're like, that's the camera now instead of over here where it was, and then it's all bright and I'm not like sitting in my little cave. It's just different for me. It's got to be different for you. I have a bright light in my face. I was told people are better at the marketing aspect than I am. And by say better, I mean like I suck at it and I'm horrible at it. And I know I am. Framing shots, doing all that stuff. It's just not my thing. But somebody whose thing it was, or is, I should say, reached out to me and said, no, we're not ready for you yet. We're not ready for topics yet. I'm bitching, God damn it. Maybe if you didn't look as much in a cave, you wouldn't be as offensive. I think that's what they were trying to say. So I gave it a shot. I moved some things around. Hopefully people like it. If you don't, click on to the next thing. I don't give a shit, really. I did it because somebody suggested it, and I'm willing to try things out when people suggest it. I'm certainly, like I said, not good at this. Go Niners. We're going to start the night off with a Go Niners. Oh, man. That's all right. I'm not going to tell him he's wrong. He's wrong. Welcome to the Edge of Liberty. In the chat room already, I've seen Boyd. I've seen O2. Mission Ready Men, good evening. I know Ricky's in the chat. Good evening. Listening Post is in the chat. Good evening. Tio Pualo, good evening. And everybody else who's funneling into the chat room. It is bright. Oh, EOD operator's in the chat room. He's first, obviously. Bright light. So, folks, we finally figured something out, and that something is who's been funding all the racism in this country. Oh man, thanks. I really appreciate that. Who's been funding racism in this country? Because the Democrats have talked about it like it's being funded. They've known for a long time, and I guess, they should have known. But when we saw videos like the one I'm about to show you, and everyone says, well, who's funding it? Where's the money coming from? How are these people getting U-Hauls? How do they all have the same outfit on? How is all of this possible? I don't understand that there's funding somewhere, and damn it, it's the conservatives that are doing this. It's the conservatives and Trump and everybody who's on the right side of it that really pushes the racism in this country. You gotta remember to slide over a little bit. And they've been saying that for years. And when we saw videos, where the hell is it? Because I spend so much time on the stupid lighting. Yeah, here it is. When we saw videos like this, that's what we were screened at all along, is that this was right-wing funded, the right-wing called. The reason these people were able to come up with signs to wear the same uniforms, to get U-Hauls to get there, that caused these problems, folks like groups like Unite the Right and others, it was all because of Trump, the conservatives. We're the ones that caused this. And that's what we were told for years. And when we pushed back and we'd say, but that's not us. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not people that voted for anybody that's not racist on either side of the aisle. There's always going to be some aspects of racism. But I remember late 90s, early 2000s, when it didn't matter what your paint job was in life. Nobody cared about it for the most part. And if somebody was being a dick, you were like, yeah, they're assholes. And we'll just move away from them. But we finally figured it out. We finally found out who was funding these groups. And I'm going to show you a picture of some of their staff right now. That's it. That's some of the people who have been funding racism in this country. Now you're going to say, Sean, you're out of your mind. What are you even talking about? Because that doesn't make any sense. And then I bring up to you the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, as I said, conservatives have been saying, look, all of these weird, these groups like the one you just saw, they keep showing up to events so quickly, much like the Democrats have at their protests, and it doesn't make sense to us. And that's not us. That's not, and we're told, oh no, it's you. Well, it wasn't. It turns out, this is my favorite part. There were 11 charges against people over at the Southern Poverty Law Center. If you don't know what the Southern Poverty Law Center is, oh, geez, get a pen, write this down. The Southern Poverty Law Center started out way back when, actually trying to protect people who were either poor or being discriminated against. That's how they started. And now they just have a shitload of money, as we know why, because they get donations by claiming there's racism every single place, and people donated saying, I want to stop the racism. And then, according to this indictment, the Southern Law Poverty Center turns around and starts giving it to all of these groups like the National Socialist Party, the Ku Klux Klan. I have more down here. Hold on. Where are they? Because Patriots Front, Unite the Right. Where's the rest of them? Like every group that the people are donating against is who the Southern Poverty Law Center was giving money to. Now, the DOJ did a speech. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'm going to play some of it. Oh, here it is. Here's the rest of the list. I knew I had it. American Nazi Party, KKK, Aryan Nation, United Klans of America, Unite the Right, National Alliance, National Socialist Movie, Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, and the American Front, all funded by liberal Democrats. Now, I may have said a long time ago that Democrats are the ones who pushed racism when it wasn't there, and they've Cast Blast 1989. Thank you for your warning. Thank you for your warning to the masses. Please, there is strictly no edging policy here on the Edge of Liberty during the live stream. Can we get a link to the source? Which source do you want to link to? The no edging source, because Cast Blast can offer that to you? Or are you talking about the actual DOJ indictment that exposed all of this? Because if you want that, I do happen to have it here somewhere. Just so you know, because I know there's all these doubting Thomases who say, oh, well, where does this information come from? It comes from this. Just so you know. There it is. This is the DOJ indictment, or this is the report on the indictment. You can actually get the indictment right here. That's where the indictment actually is. And if you read through all of it, there's your facts. Appreciate it, Cast Blast. But I'm going to go through a little bit and read some of the press release that explains what's going on inside of the indictment. A grand jury in Montgomery, Alabama today returned an indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 11 counts of wire fraud, false statements to a federally insured bank, and conspiracy to commit conspiracy money laundering money. The United States Attorney Office out of the Middle District of Alabama Northern Division filed 2 forfeiture actions, recover alleged proceeds in the organization's fraud scheme. The FBI investigated the case in the assistance of the IRS. The SPLC is manufacturing racism to justify its existence, according to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Using donor money that allegedly profit off Klansmen cannot go unchecked. This Department of Justice will hold the SPLC and every other fraudulent organization operating with the same deceptive playbook accountable. No entity is above the law. You're right. David, is that David Duke? Is David Duke? Oh, David Danyuk in the chat says it still has to. You know what? It absolutely does. It does have to go to court. But it's so funny how the left only wants to wait for certain court procedures to play out, but not other ones. Interesting. But to go back to what we were saying, in all those wire frauds, as I said before, between 2014 and 2023, more than $3 million were donated to funds and individuals who are associated with various extremist groups, including the ones I mentioned before, the KKK, yada, 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 all those assholes. According to the indictment, the objective of the scheme was to artifice and obtain money via donations through materially false representation and omissions about what the donated funds would be used for. Like I said, they create the cycle. They say, give us money to fight racism. They give some of the money to actual racists, so they show up at events. And then sudden Poverty Law Center shows up and says, oh, we need more money to fight racists because, look, they're showing up at events. That's what's being alleged. And it's funny because, as I said earlier, we've been saying that's been going on for a long time. And not just with the Southern Poverty Law Center. But a lot of these things that we're seeing were completely astroturf. They were not real. They were not grassroots, and you could tell. Yeah, that Trump sued a lot of people, and a lot of people have sued Trump. I'm glad you're paying attention. But again, it's only the ones you want to talk about are the ones that you seem to bring up, which is absolutely incredible. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And the other thing, too, and depending on who's in the next administration as to how this plays out, or what will factor in how this plays out. But it goes back to USAID. It goes back to the left love to raise money, love to take money, love to grab bunches of money and give it to groups that either don't have America's interest at heart, or just like CNN for years and all the other MSLSD just lying repeatedly about what was going on in the world. And this is even worse because they're paying these people to go up and terrorize other people. They're actually funding this shit. The good people who are at events with, and I don't care if I politically agree or not, but it goes back to the lie, the very fine people lie that we've all seen played out 150 times, and we all know it was a lie. MSNBC and the Democrats pushed it as true. Russia, 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 the Steele dossier. The list goes on and on and on. And what's shocking to me, I was more shocked. I wasn't really excited, Corn. Like, I just think it's funny that I was about to shit all over the clubs that he would have been a part of, like the KKK, and I thought he showed up in the chat, but I misread his name. It was just would have been ironic at best. But as I was saying, when you turn around and all of those things I just listed that we all know are fake now, and they keep doubling down on it, the very fine people, which plays directly into this because there was a group that showed up with torches, turns out to be a lie, and the media pushed that. I want to know at what point, when are Democrats going to actually start questioning their leadership? See, what you may not realize is conservatives are we're pretty rough on our own people. We're calling for John Thune to get thrown out right now because we won't pass the SAVE Act. Now, we're not going after them for the same reasons you would, but we try to hold them accountable, right? You can say what you want about Trump, but the reality of the situation is we just voted for him a year and a half ago for immigration, and guess what? That was that and crime were the two leading things going on. He's following through with it. Now, you don't like that because of what it represents, and you didn't like Trump to begin with, but at least he didn't. And you look at all the criticism the right put on Pam Bondi, you put on all the criticism on a regular basis. When we say, I may agree with the president, but I don't like this, yada, yada, yada. And you don't get that out of the left vocally. Quietly, you do. One-on-one, you do. But you don't get that vocally all that much. You saw a little of it after the last election when they were talking about how everybody knew Biden was a mess. And all of a sudden, Democrats were like, yeah, that wasn't the best thing in the world. It wasn't great that they hit him for the last year. It wasn't great that they threw Kamala out there. It wasn't great that they did a bait and switch at the end of the day. Right? They owned it for a little bit, and then it was back to business as usual. And when you come out and you show evidence, even in this case, you can go read the indictment. You can go look at all the evidence. You're right. They have not been convicted yet. But the evidence is pretty damning in itself. And the fact that it even exists to the level that it does, if you read the indictment, which I doubt most people will, but if you go through and read it, there's a lot of evidence in there. And not all of it, obviously, because it's just the indictment. But somebody at some point has to say on the left, enough is enough. We've tried this lying, this emotion baiting, this lighting fires on how people feel versus reality. We're not having real conversations. We're just having screaming matches. Everything is racist. Everything is homophobic. Everything is transphobic, blah, 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 just because somebody doesn't agree. And the shrieking begins. And then when something like this comes up, and we just saw it in the chat room, right? Immediate defense of it. Not even let me think and let me be mature enough to say, if this is true, the Southern Poverty Law Center should be held accountable because this has no place in our society. But they won't, as you're seeing in the chat room right now. They're just going to defend anything they can at all times because they don't live in a place called reality, and they don't want to know the truth. They don't want to know fact from fiction. They want to live in their bubble because it's easier for them to live in their bubble because they're not really challenged in their bubble. They'll come into chat rooms and act tough in a chat room, and where they have the ability to sit there and Google stuff and pull stuff up, and we've seen it time and again in our own chat room and other people's chat room. Was it an Earl show a couple weeks ago where every single point the guy made happened to be like the talking point on like Mother Jones or one of the other liberal websites, and it was all like the top 6 stories is everything it kept bringing up. It happens all the time. You want to have a rational argument, this is a great place to start. turn around and say, this, I agree with 80% of the Southern Poverty Law Center, but I don't agree with this. This is horrible. Financing these extremist groups when we target extremist groups on a regular basis, or we allegedly do, and they're defrauding the people who are donating to them. That's the thing that's amazing. They're defrauding the people, and there are people who will still turn around and still donate to them because Orange Man Bad is bigger than anything else in their heads. That's how emotionally hijacked that they are as a party, is that Orange Man Bad is more important than anything else. USAID, you started to see all the money with USAID. They didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to talk about it. They couldn't even turn around and say, yeah, maybe $25 million for trans play development in Ireland isn't our best investment choice. No, they were just mad the money was taken away. And when you've seen allegations that some of that money came back into Democrat coffers, they immediately said, no, this wouldn't happen. We've run out Paul Ryan and a whole bunch of other people from our party, run them out. And not because of scandal, but because they're not doing what we wanted them to do as a party. Think about that. You think about all the former conservatives that are sitting on the sideline right now that are doing things like this, their own podcast, and they used to have prominence, yada, yada, yada. And the left doesn't, it's amazing the lengths they will go to defend their side, no matter how wrong something is on the face or in the evidence. And it's ridiculous to me that in 2026, and you saw it in our chat room, an indictment like this can come out, and there's no room for reflection. As a matter of fact, it was quite the opposite. Chuck Schumer commented this: if you're a politician, at least be smart enough to not say anything if you don't like what's being done until you, in a situation like this, till you know all the facts. Old Chucky Schumer, the Trump administration is waging a vindictive campaign against the various organizations that safeguard our democracy. Weaponizing the DOJ to indict longstanding watchdogs is a message. If you defend voting rights, fight white supremacy. Fight white supremacy, Chucky. The allegations that they threw a couple $1 million at white supremacist groups, brother. Or protecting civil rights, you're next. This is an assault on the institutions. First and foremost, people don't realize, and he won't say this, and they phrase things on purpose. Southern Poverty Law Center is not a government organization. It survives on donations. Exposing them for fraudulently taking money from people who think they're donating for good causes, you should be excited about it. All this post is, and it's a response to the New York Times article that announced this on the 21st. All this is Chuck Schumer defending, if the allegations are true, fraud and funding white supremacist extremist groups. It's just incredible. And this is exactly what Democrats do nonstop. They can't wait. And they won't sit there and turn around and say, yeah, it doesn't look good. Remember, you have 3/4 Democrats that have been indicted that are sitting in Congress right now. And when George Santos, as I've talked about, was indicted, everybody, including conservatives, said, all right, no, if he's going to go, he's going to go. It's cool. And they're defending those four, and how dare you bring it up? And then you have idiots in the party who cannot help themselves, like Chuck Schumer, to turn around and defend it no matter what. And it's frustrating and it's obnoxious because it's gaslighting of their own people. They're defending it because this is exactly what they do to their base. They lie to them to get donations. And then when they allow things to happen, they turn around and say, well, if you want to stop that, you have to give us more money. It's a loop. It is It is the biggest. It's exactly what Southern Poverty Law Center is doing. It's a bait and switch, or it's a scam, I should say. It's a pyramid scheme. And this is exactly how Democrats organize their own party. They lie about something. They tell you all of these horrible things are happening, and it's happening on these humongous scales. And if you don't elect Democrats, it's going to happen, and they're going to come for you. Remember all the women that were going to be put in jail, and all the trans that were going to be put in jail, and women's rights were getting taken away, and all the other lies from just the last election alone? Never happened. They went after a group that is enough to get an indictment from a grand jury, and you won't take a step back, and you won't think logically and say, yeah, maybe there's some problems here and there, and that doesn't mean all of us are bad, blah, 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 blah. You have the chance of doing that. Let's see. Happy Wednesday, Daniel. Thank you for being here. Stuart, thank you for being here. Ricky, thank you for being here. EOD operator, of course, thank you for being here. David, I think that's David Duke in secret. Thank you for being here. And I think Cornelius, I think I said hi and thank you to you earlier. So I appreciate you guys being here. Happy Wednesday to you, Daniel. You made it halfway through the week. It's hump day, brother. Hopefully you can get to the other side. I want to touch on one thing, and this is what the media does. And this is just an example of it. Talking about Hamas in the Middle East and how everyone was saying there was going to be Israel and the rest of the countries were supporting it. We're trying to commit a genocide against the Gazan people. Never mind all the attacks that Hamas and Hezbollah or whatever conducted on Israel. That doesn't matter. And again, this isn't if you agree or not with Israel. This is to show you exactly what the media does. Hamas says it pays stipends to around 50,000 widow fighters killed by the IDF in the war it initiated. 50,000 is what Hamas, the terrorist organization, is paying out to widows. So you base that and you do the math with the amount of people that died in the Gaza war that Israel, and that means by its own admission, 80% of Gaza's dead were terrorist combatants. 80% of the people. Now, 20% is a big number. Yes, I understand that. But it shows that they were targeting actual combatants. And the media, both in this country and beyond, was framing that as a genocide because they were going after enemy combatants because Israel didn't do what they wanted to do, which was go in there for a few days, blow up a few things, and then pull back out and let the cycle repeat. That's the reason why. So they create this narrative. Oh, it's a genocide. You see all these protests, just like the Southern Poverty Law Center. They lie, they exaggerate, they get what they want out of it. They don't tell people the truth. And then when you try to have a conversation about the truth, the left goes nuts about it. That's not true. That's not true. You saw it. They're going there with tanks. Yeah, well, I also saw the video that Israel released where an infant was grenaded in her crib. I mean, it's horrible. But as I've said before, and this isn't even an Israel thing, this is any country. If I'm sitting in my house and I use this example and I have a neighbor who I don't like, who says I shouldn't live here, pardon me, the allergies have been crazy. So as I said, you have that neighbor who lives next door who you guys don't get along, and every single day he shoots into your house. How long are you going to take it? And yeah, he's got family over there, and that's unfortunate, but you've told everybody about it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. At some point, you're going to snap and just go for broke on it. You're going to go in there, especially if you have kids in your house or whatever, you're going to go for broke and snap. If nobody's going to help, we'll friggin' do it ourselves. And that's what they did. And then you turn around, and when they started going further than what the media deemed acceptable, it became an attempted genocide. And it's just more proof, and I've told you all the time, you can't hate the media enough. Look, me, I say it on this show all the time. Don't take my word for it. Go do the research yourself. The guy asked, oh, where can I see this? I pulled up the indictment. This is the information I'm working off of. The Democrats never do that. Liberals, especially young liberals, never do that. We can argue that that's why schools are the way they are. We can argue a lot of things. The simple fact of the matter is they don't do it. And because they don't do it, the Southern Poverty Law Center can do what they did and get away with it up until the Trump administration shows up. Like it or not, that's what happened. I'm going to take a break. I got more to talk about, a couple more segments. I have a ton more clips. I don't know if I'll get to all of them because you know how this works. I don't. None of us on this network seem to get to all of our clips that we want to get to. But we're going to give it a damn shot right after the break. Please like and subscribe wherever you're calling from or watching from, not calling. The hell? Who calls anyone anymore? I'm just taking a break. I'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the SHR Media Shop. This is not just merch, it is a statement. SHR Media is built as a rebellion against the mainstream. We deliver truth without a filter or permission. When you wear our gear, you are standing for liberty and unapologetic free thought. Every piece is a badge of support for independent journalism. Wear it loud, wear it proud. Support the mission and join the rebellion at the SHR Media web store.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this. You rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic woman who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
The Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Why isn't that? Let's try that. There it is. The other thing that sucks when you move your set all around is you have to get all your wiring just right. You have to remember where every single thing is, and stuff gets lost all the time. I love this meme. Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm working on hate crimes, like stopping them, right? And the mask goes on. Stopping them, right? I know I'm easily entertained. I'm the first one to admit it, but stuff like that always makes me laugh. So, from one set of fraud to another potential set of fraud, let me ask you a question. If you did your taxes and 1 minute you said you had $30 million. And then the next minute you turned around and said, oh, no, I carried the 2 wrong when I was doing the taxes. Or my accountant carried the 2 wrong. And I actually make $95,000, and that's my bad. I'm only worth 95 grand. How quickly would you end up in jail? Pretty quickly, because that's tax fraud. But apparently not when you're a sitting member of Congress. And my friend, let me tell you about Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is now claiming, after saying she's worth $30 million, that she's only worth $95,000, which we all know is bullshit because she makes $177,000 a year in Congress. Never mind speaking engagements and everything else that every member of Congress, not just her, admittedly, every member of Congress does. And then, as if that wasn't enough, in part of her wealth or her money that she had, part of that $30 million that she had, was this winery in California. S-Crew LLC is the LLC organization of it. And on April 4th, after all of these questions started to come out about her finances, including how she afforded to have this winery, the winery filed paperwork and certificate of cancellation for the LLC, effectively closing the business in California. When I tell you, like, Nick Shirley didn't just expose the fraud at the daycare centers. He's got her on the run. Maybe not him directly, but what he exposed. And when she was questioned about this, and one of the things is, she is the most annoying and flippant human being. It's annoying, and I get it. I know Trump can be annoying. I know some other members of Congress can be annoying, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be. She does it in a weird way. Now, this puts aside the fact that state lawmakers in Minnesota are accusing her of taking part of the scheme that stole $250 million of federal funds. That's a Minnesota lawmaker. That's not even the federal government. That's not me. That's what they're saying. Put that aside. Put aside the fact that she suddenly went from her value being 30 million to 100,000. I don't even know how that's possible. I don't know how that accounting error can happen. But look at how she responds when she's pushed. Now, this is Allison in the know. She works for the Lindell TV group. And she asked Ilhan Omar about this sudden change in her worth and her value. And listen to what Ilhan Omar responds with. And this is why I don't like her.
Congresswoman Omar, the last time I spoke to you, you said that I was stupid for asking you about your financial disclosure, but there's some discrepancies on there. Would you like to explain that? How did you make such a big mistake on it?
Absolutely, you're stupid for asking me anything.
I am?
Yes.
Well, what about the American people who are wondering how you made such a big mistake?
I have explained to the American people.
What's the explanation?
I have given them the explanation.
Do you want to tell our viewers? Because
I don't want to tell you jack shit.
Oh.
How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
What I don't like about Ilhan Omar is now, saying all that with the smile on her face is what really pisses me off. Because I'd rather she just be like, I don't want to fucking talk to you. Okay, that's fine. But to turn around and to be like, well, you're stupid for asking me a question. How dare you question me? I'm Ilhan Omar. I'm a member of Congress. I'm a Somali immigrant. How dare you question me? And it's like, well, there's a lot of shit to question you about, girl. Like, this isn't just like, it's the weirdest thing. What a cocky little girl. Yeah, Ilhan Omar is a cocky little girl. It's the reporter's job to ask questions, even uncomfortable questions. And Ilhan Omar could have just turned around and said, look, we're going to do a press release and you can read that and go with that. She could have said, I'm going to do a speech about this. I don't want to talk about it right now. She could have said a lot of things. But that smile on her face where it really shows that she thinks she's better than everybody else is what annoys me. Like I said, if she was just an a-hole in the sense of being like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you, and ignored her and walked away, okay. Now that's much more palatable. But this fake front that she puts up with this big smile on her face, and I think you're shit. Oh, I think you're shit. But when I say it, the whole internet goes crazy. When I say Ilhan Omar is a piece of shit, people get mad at me and they call me all sorts of names. When she does it to a white girl, it's totally fine. I think you're stupid. No, okay. I say that to Ilhan Omar, and I'm a xenophobe, or whatever they want to call me. Mission Ready Men says, just another in a slew of reasons why she is insufferable. She is entirely insufferable. The whole squad is, and it's amazing to me that they still get the support that they get. And that people, and I get it, the people that support her are either A, too smart to think for themselves or be able to see through the grift, or B, have something to gain from supporting her other than just being an American, having our rights protected. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes, because I want to see her explain the change. And like I said, if that was you or I, we filed our taxes and claimed it was an accounting error, that we were not really worth 30 million, we're worth 97,000, despite the fact she's been in Congress for 5-6 years and makes $177,000 a year plus speaking engagements, never mind all the donations and yada yada yada. She had all that money to pay to what, her brother, who was her bodyguard, who also owned the business, or some other, I can't even keep track of it all anymore. But you turn around and you have to ask yourself once again, if you're a Democrat, maybe there's a little more there, to quote somebody. Speaking of a-hole Democrats, let's see. Who do I want to get to next? Because I have so many of them. I'm going to talk about Virginia here shortly. Oh, this is a fun story. And I'm actually, this story made me smile because it was once again, I'm right. And if there's one thing I love, is knowing I'm right. So when Anthony Weiner, you know him, he's that weird little freakazoid that is a California state senator that's vying to be the next state rep in Congress, taking over Pelosi's spot. He filed a bill and sponsored a bill and wrote a bill that in California tried to keep federal agents from masking on their face. Now, as soon as the bill came out, I, who only worked in law enforcement, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read pretty and I understand the Constitution. I understand supremacy clause, yada, 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 said there's absolutely no way this will stand up in court. There's no way. It's going to get challenged immediately because of the supremacy clause. Local, state law enforcement cannot dictate such things to federal law enforcement. Their uniform, there's a lot of things, but specifically how they wear their uniform. They don't have the authority to do that. And because of the supremacy clause, they still have to respect the federal authorities and what they're doing, whether they like it or not. Well, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, that is not the Ninth that it was years ago, and I know that. There's a lot more conservatives on the Ninth than there used to be, had just turned around and said, yeah, the state of California cannot arrest federal agents for wearing uniforms in the manner that they do not like, essentially. The panel granted the United States motion for an injunction pending appeal in joining the state of California Governor Gavin Newsom and Anthony Bonta, Attorney General Rob Bonta, my apologies, for applying or enforcing 10 of the No Vigilantes Act codified in California Penal Code 13654 against federal agencies. Section 10 of the No Vigilantes Act, that's what they called it, which is just ridiculous, requires any non-uniformed federal law enforcement officer operating in California, with narrow exceptions, to visibly display identification while performing federal law enforcement duties, and officers who violate the law now face criminal prosecution by the state. So you see this in California, you see it in a lot of other states where their law enforcement is required to have their name and badge numbers or ID forward on their uniforms. sometimes on the back. It's the same ones who's, if you ask a law enforcement officer what his name and badge number, in some states they're required by law to give it to you. That's fine. States can do that if they want to do that. Perfectly okay with that if the state chooses to do that. It's a state right. The state cannot turn around, as I said, and force the federal government to live up to that same standard. Now, I know all the Democrats, what is that? I know all the Democrats say, well, they should have to do it anyhow because of X, Y, and Z and A, B, and C and blah, 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 blah. And because, they're just monsters and they're snatching people off the street and they're kidnapping people and all this other stuff. But then you contrast that to the amount of swatting that happens in the world, the amount of people's information being exposed on the internet, where they live, where they work, what their wives look like, what their kids look like, yada, yada, yada. And we talk about the amount of violence this year that has gone against federal agents and ICE. And you realize why they have to protect their identity, because the left has, since Trump closed the borders and started enforcing immigration, done what the Southern Poverty Law Center turned around and did when they turn around and say, oh, these people are a problem. If you elect me and give me more money, we'll fix that. And they're a problem and they're evil and they're acting illegally. How many times have you heard that about ICE and other federal authorities? They're acting illegally. They can't do that. That's illegal. Lying entirely about the authority of those federal agents. And California, and I said, they know and knew that bill would not, or that law would not stand. They have lawyers all over the place when they write that bullshit. But that's a fundraising law. That's a law that they put forward to say, see, I did that. I wrote this to try to stop those evil ICE agents who are kidnapping people off the streets. They're not. And unless you give me more money, I can't get elected to the next level and stop that. They have no authority to stop that. Yada, yada, yada. And they lie repeatedly because they get away with it, because their own voters don't hold them accountable, because they keep throwing money at them left and right. And then you get a person like Daniel Barber, who makes himself known and feels emboldened to make himself known because, well, the left makes it happen that way. They allow it. This is his email that he sent to immigration. He's been arrested, by the way, but he's previously convicted of a murder. Just not that that matters, right? Because the left doesn't care about what criminals are walking the streets anymore or whatever. This is the email that he sent from his email address. Brutally goofy Buddha. Goofy people murder all the time. If there's one thing I say about murderers on this show, is there's some of the goofiest, silliest people. They're zany. They're just so lighthearted and goofy. This is the email that he wrote to the federal agents. Terrified masked ICE agents is what he titled it for. Your Gestapo Nazi maggot ICE agents should be terrified, because the truth is every single fucking one of them deserves to be arrested by armed American citizens, frog marched into the streets, similarly tried and convicted of crimes against humanity there in public, and subsequently executed right there as well with 2 fucking bullets in the back of their maggot Nazi head. Remember what I said earlier to the screwball that was in the chat room? And I said, it's funny how they only talk about court cases they want. They only want people executed. They don't care if pedophiles get executed. They're fine. Don't worry about pedophiles. Rapists, nah, they're okay. But when a federal agent's doing their job, whether you like that job or not, then all of a sudden the death penalty is on hand, and no appeals, no living for 40 years in a federal prison. Not that they would ever be convicted, because that's bullshit. There's no law that they're breaking, but neither here nor there. No. As soon as the public, the court of public opinion levies its opinion, which would be guilty, because he's doing this under the pretense that the left controls everything and everybody in this country would run out and encircle them. This is how fucking deluded they are. They would find them guilty in a kangaroo court and then shoot them in front of everybody. That's what they want. Now, when somebody's tried, convicted, goes through their appeals, and you go to execute them for murdering 5 people, they freak out. But not brutally Goofa Buddha. He goes on to say, every single fucking one of them. Maybe stop acting like heinously evil fascist cunts, pardon my expression, and they wouldn't deserve such a fate. By the way, with that last word I said, where I said, excuse my expression, he put 3 Ks in front of it. This guy was convicted of murder, by the way, just so we're clear. And that is not a threat, you little bitch, but simply my opinion as to those worms, what those worms deserve. I'll be fucking praying daily to the universe. Americans start rising up and giving them and you exactly that. Now, once again, the left is showing us how well structured they are. And this is the individual right here, by the way. This is the guy on the left, not the guy in the ice jacket, because that would be odd and ironic. But no, the guy on the left is the silly Buddha, the goofy guy, the guy who's just whimsical and funny and threatening to want to murder federal agents. This isn't a threat. No, it's exactly what it is. It's a threat. Adding this isn't a threat in an email like that, and this isn't legal advice, but you can do your own research. It's like when you're threatening to commit an act of domestic violence, and then you turn around and you're texting online, and then you turn around and say, in Roblox or in what's the blocky game? I can't even think of it right now that all the kids were playing. They were adding that at the end. I want to do X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C, yada, 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 in Roblox or in the game, trying to like say, no, I was talking about in the game. I'm not really threatening, yada, yada, yada. But they were, and they are, and he was in Minecraft. Thank you. I want to do all these horrible things in Minecraft. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, man, speaking of well-balanced, and again, the party of peace and tolerance never seems, they just can't get their best foot forward. And here's another one whose best foot is not forward.
Who knows it? I haven't cared up until this point. But you know, sometimes you got to be a little coy. You got to be a little like, woohoo! I don't give a fuck. I want him dead. I want him DEAD, head on a stake.
I just want you to throw out a few guesses, if you will, on who she's talking about.
Dead. I want him dragged through the motherfucking streets. Okay? I want his ass dragged. I want him gutted. I want his entrails in the fucking road. A whole civilization will.
Now, do you think she's talking about, I don't know, somebody who sexually assaulted a minor, or somebody who murdered some people, or maybe an illegal alien that killed a woman who was pregnant and violated her, or maybe a violent man who stabbed an innocent girl riding the train in the neck? No. She's talking about the President of the United States of America. And I'm going to let you finish it because there's something wrong with them.
I want the motherfucker dead. I do. Oh, Jules, you shouldn't say that. I don't give a fuck. I want him fucking dead.
By the way, Jules has already killed her
dead.
TikTok.
I don't care who knows it. I'm not.
Because
I don't.
Once again, the internet has done something amazing. They have made people think, well, actually, no, let me rephrase that. Democrats have done this. This is another Democrat lie. People think that free speech means that you get to say what you want. They don't understand how free speech actually works. You don't get to make death threats specifically against the president and not be prosecuted for it. You don't get to threaten to kill somebody in most states and not be prosecuted for it. We have laws against stuff like that. That's not free speech. That is a threat to commit a crime. In some states, it's called a terroristic threat. Speaking of wins, I got 7 minutes left. I don't know if I'm going to make the whole 7 minutes, and mostly because I'm really not feeling well tonight, but I'm going to try, so bear with me. California, you remember, I talk about Gavin Newsom. God, do I love talking about Gavin Newsom because he's such a shit show. Gavin Newsom, who has bankrupted the state and left us in debt as he walks out the door to run for president, which he's been doing for 2 years anyways, has just been taking L's left and right. Charles Schwab, who has been in California for 50 years, gigantic financial firm, You know who Charles Schwab is. Well, they announced they're leaving and going to Texas, taking with them $10 trillion in client assets. Now, obviously, they did not have $10 trillion in the state of California, but that shows you how large they are as a business. Imagine how much they pay in taxes, how much they pay in rent, how much they pay their people who live here, and their salaries, buy houses, pay rents, buy groceries, go to businesses and spend money, yada, yada, yada. They're out. Why? Well, because California has the worst business laws. New Jersey and New York are running close, but California is right up there. And they won't change course. And all of these companies are leaving. Another one that left is KB Homes. It's a $1 billion company that was based here in California. They left, or they're in the process of leaving. Another huge business. Now, this is the guy who thinks he's going to be the next president. He's convinced of it. And we know that because he walks around acting like he's the president now and giving speeches like he's the president now. Just today, on Earth Day, when his wife, who accidentally killed her sister. Let me rephrase that. Killed her sister. I don't want to say that inaccurately. Went on this weird 90-second speech during an Earth Day event that you can find, and it's really weird because she brought up her sister and a couple other things. That whole speech was bizarre. But then he turned around and he's trying to blame the gas prices in California and other places on the war. Now, that has ticked up. We talked about that last week, but it's also coming back down. And in California, where it's almost $6 a gallon, that's been a problem here for years now because California taxes the bejesus out of a gallon of gas, $1.80 or more. Hey, SK, where were you when Biden had the prices? Because I live in California. I've been here for a long time. I was paying almost $6 under Biden too. The prices will drop back down once this settles, and they're still not as high as they were under Biden. So appreciate you being here. Thank you for enhancing my viewership. And Gavin Newsom acts like he's never done anything to hurt the pocketbooks of the people he serves. It's incredible to me. Shift change just occurred. The new bots are into the chat. Well, it takes them a minute to switch between accounts. I'm almost convinced every time I talk about Newsom and a new bot shows up, it's that little twerp that works for him that runs his social media. Because he's the same one that I'm convinced if you comment anything negatively under Gavin's social media, you get the same 4 or 5 people that show up and say the same 4 or 5 things over and over and over. The world economy is going to be trashed for 3 to 5 years because of this stupid war, said nobody ever. There's no validation behind that. You have no facts behind that. You have no proof behind that. What will happen, if successful, the companies have a... This is my favorite. I love ending the show with people like this because it makes it really easy. We have more oil in this country than we do than overseas has. We don't need their oil. The other countries need their oil. We don't need their oil. Oil companies have a cabal with Republicans. Is the silliest thing, and you spelled cabal wrong, which is even funnier because it just shows how unintelligent you are. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with taking the world leader of terrorism off the board and shoestringing, I should say, Russia and China from progressing and growing and being more keeping them from being the big maggots that they are and dropping them back a little bit. But I think it's adorable. It's absolutely adorable. You're running out of jet fuel. Cost for... Just wait, my guy. Okay, pal. Just wait, my guy. Yeah, the oil markets are worldwide if you're part of OPEC. If you're not part of OPEC, which the United States isn't, then it's not worldwide. And you know what? Maybe if Europe actually stepped in and tried to either help, I don't know, in Ukraine, which they didn't, or taking out the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime, which they all said needed to be done, and then when it came time to do it, none of them wanted to do it because they were all pussies. Then maybe none of that would have been disrupted and it could have gone a lot quicker, but they chose not to. And folks, that's it from me here on the Edge of Liberty. thank you very much for sticking with me tonight. I hopefully you like the new set. I'm going to make some little bit of changes and some adjustments. First time's always rough. Just ask, SK, just ask your mom. First time's always rough. No, I'm kidding. That was low blow. I was just being a jerk just because I make myself laugh when I'm a jerk. I'll be back Monday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. Please check out our friends over. Oh, pardon me. Please check out our friends, and thank you to KLRN for simulcasting every Monday and Wednesday. I'm here at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, 8 p.m. Pacific, as I said, but I'm not the only one. Monday and Fridays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. You have the Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Men with Big E. Tuesday and Thursday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, The Bulbous, One Z's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Friday and Saturdays, The New Guys, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 on the East Coast. And that, of course, is Lyle with Beer and Bullstein. And then every other Sunday, I know he's making a comeback. The Lost Wanderer will be on our YouTube, usually at 5 p.m. Pacific, but check the times for that. Thank you so much. Check out shrmedia.com for some merch. I will see you Monday night. I hope you have a great rest of your evening.